think we're recording, Paige.
We are.
Hi, Paige.
Hey,
How you doing?
I'm well today.
You're well
Yes.
and grammatically correct. As so many that know David and Paige and Daring Deeply, by the way, David Lee and who?
Paige Stewart.
Yeah, with Daring Deeply. Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, and those who don't identify with the gender, all our non-binary friends as well. Welcome on in. Yeah, we love language. And so Paige just responded, how's she doing today? She said she's
I'm doing well.
I'm doing well. Not good. Well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a woman that I used to, let's see, she was a client in a previous business.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd always ask, hey, how are you doing today? And her answer was just right. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Every time she would come in, hey, how are you doing today? I'm just right.
I'm just right.
Yeah, she's just right.
Yeah.
So so wherever she is and whether it's, a low emotion or perhaps a high, she's just like, this is what it is. I'm just right.
I'm just right. So there's maybe the time of this particular podcast recording or the fact that my masculine energy is coming forward because I'm thinking food. Right? How do you like your eggs? Just right. How do you like your food? Just right. Ooh, is it just right? Ooh, it's just right. Pancakes, just right.
I was like, where is he going with this? I have no idea.
Yeah, well,
but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you like? Ooh, they're just right. Somebody says, ooh, are the hamburgers okay? Yeah, they're just right. So I like that. Yeah, I like that. All right. So let's get into it, shall we? Yeah, let's go.
We're not talking about food today.
We could certainly hold a whole podcast and give people, because we are admittedly
proclaimed.
Thank you. There's the language again. Self-proclaimed foodies, Paige Stewart and David Lee are. And no, we won't necessarily. Maybe we should have a food episode of the podcast sometime.
It really just all be tacos if it were up to me.
It would all just be tacos, she says. Yeah. Yeah. And those of you that are watching or listening to this podcast, yeah, leave a comment, and say yes to tacos. Doesn't have to be Tuesday. Yeah. I think that is our wonder food. If we were to identify a food that we both deeply enjoy, it would be tacos. So leave a comment and just say, hey, how do you like your tacos? Corn, flour, hard, soft.
Just right.
Or just nice callback, Paige Stewart. That was beautiful. Just right. There she goes. Well, I think that's a good transition to move into our topic today, which is how in the world do you navigate trauma in a romantic relationship? How does the healing of trauma, because as we've identified so many times, I've got trauma, Paige got trauma. There's that great language. Paige got trauma. I have trauma. How about that? I have trauma. Paige has trauma. We all have trauma, friends. Okay. So let's get on the healing train and ride together. So let's look, we're starting with a standard of understanding, and our audience knows this, who follows us and listens to us on a regular basis, to know that trauma is real and raw and absolutely within all of us. So as we identify trauma, it is a simple dysregulation of the nervous system. That's trauma. And to be honest, little trauma, big trauma, it's all trauma. Our body doesn't know the difference. And really, it's about the healing of trauma that helps set us free to move us forward. That is really the answer to so many reasons why we're stuck in life, stuck in relationships, stuck in business, stuck in whatever the case may be. And so that's essentially what we help folks do with our coaching practices, to help them release and heal their trauma. And we do that through a number of different ways. But today we're going to talk about specifically how in the world is trauma dealt with in personal romantic relationships. And it's super, super important to understand that, because I think there's a lot of myth out there, and there's a lot of, I think, toxic positivity around past pain and trauma when it comes to personal relationships, whether you've been married for 20 years, whether you've been married for 1 year, whether you've never been married, single, divorced, it's complicated, whatever your relationship status is. I think it's really important for us to set a standard and to really unpack today an understanding of how we navigate trauma within a personal relationship.
Mm-hmm. I've received a question a handful of times over the past several years, and I probably have had this question myself, and I would love to ask it to you to get your perspective on it.
Absolutely.
Why would anyone be interested in healing their trauma? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, what is the point? It's such a great question. I think, well, I will say, the why behind anything takes a depth of understanding of what trauma really is. Because I think there's this cultural narrative really of this, I mentioned this earlier, a toxic positive outlook of trauma is there are people that have trauma, people who have gone to war, people who have experienced bodily, physically, emotional, deep levels of trauma. And then it's dismissed anything outside of that, which goes back to the definition. It's any dysregulation of the nervous system, right? Which means somebody jumping out of the bushes can reflect a trauma response. And so, it's super important to understand. I think when someone comes to us with a question like that, like, why would I even want to address or heal my trauma? Is I think it's important to unpack and to truly understand the definition of trauma. And I think once we've done that a number of times with folks, because we've had this question. It's a great question. It's a very valid question, because oftentimes we also discuss this too, is we all have blind spots. We all have blind spots in our emotional dysregulated bodies. And there is so often we need what we call the co-regulation of others to come into our lives who can provide perspective and insight and wisdom and inspiration to uncover those blind spots. And one of those blind spots could be, maybe I don't really know what trauma is, and I don't think I've ever experienced it. And so, one of our guidelines of engagement here at Daring Deeply is be curious before critical, right? And so we want to live through that to say, you know what? I don't think I have trauma. I don't think it's doing anything to me or through me or with me, but I am open to understand a little bit more about what that means and to see, maybe I can ride the train a little bit longer to hear how perhaps trauma is affecting me in my life that I may never have known. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Wow. That was brilliant. Really good. Really,
Thanks,
really good perspective. It's easy to stay ignorant. Right? It's so easy to just remain kind of closed off and blind to what we don't know. It's safer that way, right? Because as soon as we start to reveal some of those blind spots and receive new perspective and new ways of being, that's scary, because now once we have this awareness, this new knowing, now we have to do something with it, maybe or maybe not. And so that's where the work comes in of healing and starting to make different choices and beginning to understand our behaviors and patterns a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Did you have something else?
Not, I'll save it.
She'll save it. I love it. Well, I know it's going to be brilliant. I just, so let's jump in there. If we're to understand, let's just set a standard here, friends, that a relationship is between, typically, as we're going to define it here, is a romantic relationship is when two people come together and make choices to continue through life in a form of togetherness, right? And then we wonder, I'm just saying this off the cuff here, and then we wonder why relationships are so hard when we're bringing two separate individuals who have a complete history, whatever that history may be, which does involve levels of trauma. It's one thing for the individual to be navigating that type of healing, but then to bring two individuals into a scenario and then expect things to just be rainbows and butterflies is simply naive. And it's a way oftentimes where we override and bypass this because we think a relationship is defined as something that, quite frankly, is not. And as we define a relationship, I'll just kind of throw that out here, is as we define a romantic relationship here at Daring Deeply, is that each partner holds space, has done the healing and is healing enough to hold the space for their partner's own trauma healing and transformation. So it's not about healing the other person. That's codependency, right? It's not about fixing the other person. It's not about wishing and wanting them and doing everything we can to ensure that they're healing. That's codependency, right? That's what we call trauma bonding, right? When trauma bonds come together, like, look, we had a really crappy, shitty upbringing. Let's get together and try to heal each other's wounds, right? Which draws, won't necessarily dig into this right here today, but more often than not, two individuals may come together based on their trauma. Oh my gosh, you experienced this? Yes, I experienced this too. Let's come together and commiserate together in so many ways. And that feels like attraction, when in reality, it's the evidence of a trauma bond.
Mm-hmm. Yes, bingo. I think what's misunderstood in relationships is that it goes beyond the physical. It's not just two physical human beings coming together to share physical space, right? You're coming together to choose each other physically, but also to choose each other emotionally and to choose each other spiritually. And there's much deeper layers than I think most would realize. And so often, like, relationships get stagnant when like that physicality is lost. And so then they just think their relationship is doomed. Right? When really, like, that opens up this beautiful opportunity to deepen the relationship by exploring those deeper layers of spirituality, emotionality. Is that a word? Emotionality.
Sure, let's go with it. We just
all right, great. Sexuality, like all of that is expansive and more connecting. And that, I would argue, and I know that you would likely agree with me, is a relationship. What's the word? I don't know what the word is.
Babe, I would love to be able to read your mind.
I'm running low on words today.
It's just never going to happen. I love you so much, but it's just never going to happen.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't that part of a healthy relationship? Mind reading?
Sarcasm. Hashtag sarcasm. Did y'all hear that, folks?
Anyway.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about is next level relationship. You're talking about co-creative, purposeful, deep, passionate knowing of the self, and know, okay, you know what? I have some work to do. I have some healing to do, which, by the way, as we're navigating through this, when answering the question, so how in the world does trauma healing happen in a romantic relationship, is it happens one person at a time. So just to bring it personally to us, it's not my responsibility to heal Paige's trauma. It's not Paige's responsibility to heal my trauma. It's my responsibility to do the healing, to do the inner work, to truly understand how I can become the better version of David moving down the road. It doesn't mean that Paige is waiting for that. This is important too, because we often say this, and I'm going to say this out loud, is an affirmation that we oftentimes relay to our clients, and we relay to each other and to ourselves in our personal relationship, is, I love you, babe, just as you are here today, with all of your stuff, with all of your joy and your sadness, and with your history, and with your pain, and with your amazing, amazing spirit. And I love you more not to leave you there, right? Is an incredible affirmation for ourselves and to extend to our romantic partner. Now, notice what I said there. It wasn't, and I love you more not to leave you there. It didn't say, I love you more not to fix you, right? So it's important that the boundaries are intact, that we support our partner's healing of their trauma and pain. We're not doing the healing of our partner's pain and trauma. Super important distinction.
So how do we provide a real life example of that? Like fixing versus supporting?
That's a great idea. So I will use this as an example. So Paige and myself, we both have support outside of one another, both in coaching and therapy areas and those types of things, to where we support the movement in that. Now, it's not our responsibility to make the phone call, right? Or to do the research, right, on who is out there to perhaps provide support for one another, right? It's not our responsibility to do and fix. Go ahead. I see you wanting to jump in.
Or to nag each other to get to those appointments, or to keep those appointments, or to integrate, or to do the work.
Yep.
Micromanaging comes to mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let's speak to polarity really quick. This is, we speak to this often, is too often. Go ahead. Were you going to say it?
And before we go there, I would love to outline and distinguish between micromanaging and accountability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because accountability is huge and part of that is necessary in a healthy relationship to support each other on your own healing journeys, but then to support each other, right? To hold you accountable so that you continue to evolve and grow in the ways in which you desire to do, right? And holding space for you to do so. And I love when you hold me accountable. I love that I am accountable to you because that makes me want to keep showing up.
Yeah.
Not only for you, but for me.
For sure. I think some important language surrounding that. So folks that are listening or watching this may be thinking, okay, so what does accountability look like literally versus nagging, right? Here's the key distinction: questions. So if I want to hold Paige accountable, by the way, this is super important. Accountability is an invitation. Okay. Paige invites me to hold her accountable. Nagging and control is for me to go to Paige and say, hey, did you get to your therapy appointment? What's the problem? What are you doing? Huh? What's going on? Did you hire that coach? You really needed that, you really do need that. Or I'm going to slip a pamphlet to you over the dinner table. Hey, you know what? We ought to do this. We ought to try this. Okay. That's nagging. That's controlling. As opposed to, or what we rather would see, is to ask questions. Because again, the precursor here is that we've been invited into this accountability space. So we've been invited into that. And so I would say, Paige, how can I help support you in this particular venture, in this particular support system? And then say, hey, what else can I do to help support you? Or tell me how that went, right? And this is talk about relationship 201, 401, whatever the case may be, it's super important, friends, that part of all of this support and the healing of our trauma of our partner is to ask questions. Ask questions. Ask how things are going, right? Asking questions rather than making statements feels like boundaried accountability rather than control, nagging, checking in. Is it checking in? It's checking up. That's what I was looking for. Checking up on someone, right? Which feels ugly. It feels repressive, right? It feels condescending, right? When our partner is like, so how's that? Yeah. Did you get your appointment? What's going on? How was it? Tell me more, right? Can feel very accusatory and can go really into a dark space, which doesn't open up and provide that space necessary to support the healing of our partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Just as I was hearing you say those terms, I began to feel my energy and my physical body kind of close off. It just feels kind of gross. It feels like it weakens the connection between partners.
Absolutely.
When really, like, healing is meant to heal. It's meant to do the opposite: expansion, openness, trust. And yeah, beautiful job. I love your explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, babe. I love what you just said. Expansion. It is super imperative to know, and this is in the professional space, in our work in which we are working with our clients and helping them provide pathways to healing their trauma. But it's in relation to this conversation today, is safety and security is a must within any type of a relationship in which trauma healing is in place. So the reason why trauma still affects the body years or decades after the original incident of trauma is because there was never a safe or secure space in which for that trauma to heal. And we recognize that is so important in all of our environments at Daring Deeply, is whether it's our retreat environments, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, masterclasses, is that we provide a safe and secure space for people to feel open and expansive enough and trusting to say, you know what? I think I got some stuff to heal. I think this is what's preventing me. This is what's blocking me from moving forward. So I love what you said there, because too often, and we can even illustrate this here, those that are watching the podcast can kind of see, my body coming in. It's when I feel berated, when I'm having confirming experiences from those original incidents of trauma, my body comes inward as opposed to expanding. My chest opens, my shoulders drop, and I'm more open and trusting to hear what someone has to say to help guide me toward the healing of my trauma, including Paige. So if she is inviting, if she is asking me questions, not nagging, not controlling, not checking up on me, but simply providing an expansive, safe, and secure environment, I am able then to understand, okay, this is a safe place in which to have this conversation, in which for me to move forward to find more healing in my trauma.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yes. On the body language. Yes. Our body speaks quite literally, whether we realize it or not. And I wanted to add that this also builds confidence. It builds confidence in that. So when there's the absence of nagging and checking up on and all the other terms that are not coming to mind right now, then it allows me, for example, it allows me to become the authority in my life, the leader of my life, of me. I am only responsible for me. And that kind of like straightens me up a little bit. Like I stand a little bit taller, my shoulders naturally fall down. I stand up because I know that I'm responsible for me. And so as I continue to forge forward in this healing journey, in this process, and uncovering deeper wounds and processing them and discovering even new truths, that allows me to know myself and meet myself at deeper levels. And I gain more confidence in knowing who I am as an individual. When I know who I am as an individual, then I can better know who I'm showing up as in this relationship, in this partnership. And so it's kind of this, the mountain thing that you've shared before, rather than, I'm going to pass it off to you because you're so much better at the mountain thing than I am. But it's a beautiful, beautiful image to keep in your brain.
Yeah, and I'll try to explain it. And those that are simply listening, and I say simply, it's okay that you're simply listening to the podcast, but I would encourage you to jump on our YouTube channel because you'll see the video of our podcast. But I've often said that when two souls come together, it's like two souls on opposite sides of a mountain, and they're climbing and they're falling down and they're climbing and they're falling down, but they don't see each other. They don't experience each other. They have no idea that the other one is climbing and ascending this mountain of growth and healing until one day they crest the mountain and they see one another. And oh my goodness, I see you, you see me, and we begin to connect. And then we rise above the crest of that mountain. And we do so in ways that elevate and descend next to one another, right? It's this beautiful co-creation, this beautiful synergy. It's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. One of us may be having a fantastic day and season of life, and the other one's like, oh my gosh, it's the shittiest time right now for me, right? But to hold space, to hold that container for both, to say, you know what? I'm here for you. I hear you. I receive you. And I'm providing the space and the support in which for you to heal, to come back up to a more elevated space. Newsflash, friends, right? Even though, and I just wrote about this earlier today when this podcast was recorded, but I just said this the other day, is if you're looking for a relationship to be easy when you find the right person, you're being naive and inauthentic, right? We often say, oh, in fact, I get terrified when I hear couples say, oh, we never fight. Right? I'm like, oh, here it comes. Here it comes. Okay. It's not to say that fighting and conflict on a constant basis in an unhealthy way is positive. That's not what I'm saying. But goodness gracious, when you have two souls coming together who have a history, have a past, have trauma in their lives, when you come together, there's going to be conflict. And it's super important. It's not a matter of if, right? It's when and how you navigate that in a healthy way. It's all part of this. I wanted to say, was that good? The mountain thing? Was it?
It's fantastic. You did a brilliant job. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I wanted to go back to something so brilliant you just said, Paige, a few moments ago when you said you're responsible for you. I think this is so important. Boundaries, 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 friends. In the fabric, in the framework of a powerful romantic relationship, boundaries are the foundation. That's what builds trust. Paige is only responsible for her. It's not my responsibility to heal Paige. It's not her responsibility to ensure that I am something, right? It's in fact, and I've said this so often, is the only vow to ever present to your partner, whether it's at a wedding or whether it's every single day, right? The only vow worthy and truly respectful to the individual and to your partner is this: I promise, I vow, if I were to say this to Paige, and I'll say it right here, I promise and vow to Paige, to you, my love, that I will consistently and constantly work on my own healing, growth, and transformation. And that's all. That's the only vow that I ever have the responsibility to share with her, because it's not her responsibility to say, oh, well, as long as he's healing, then I will. Right? Mm-hmm. That's tit for tat. That's a contract, right? We're not interested in contractual relationships as far as romantic relationships are concerned. But it's super important to live in that vow. So it's not on the contingency that Paige will do the same, because I'm only responsible for me. This is hard. This is really, really tough, because you're like, whoa, 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 because so much of our life is in a contract. If I will, then you will. But in reality, the power of a bountiful relationship, a romantic relationship in which we hold space for the other's trauma healing, is one grounded in boundaries, and to say, you know what, babe, I'm making a promise today to continue to heal myself. And I love and thank you so much for the support you provide me in that endeavor.
Gives me goosebumps every time.
Does me too. I mean, it's yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The truth is that as two people come together and commit to this physical, emotional, spiritual journey, they're like, the healing is not linear. And so there are massive dips that, and frequent dips that happen unexpectedly on this journey, whether experienced by both or whether experienced by one, as you were indicating earlier. And so that's where the holding of these boundaries is crucial. That's where it's crucial, because it's so easy to allow any dip experienced by any party of the partnership sway the ecosystem of the entire relationship.
So well said. So well said. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boy, that was magnified there, Paige. Yeah, and so often that links to the trauma bonding and codependency, as if, and we often hear this, if mama ain't happy, nobody happy. Right? We probably heard this, and this is a myth, gentlemen. Just got news for you. Okay. Your job is not to do whatever you can to please your woman, to ensure that the ecosystem of your relationship is stable. Right. And polarity, really quick, it's your responsibility to lead that way. But yeah, I love what you just said, Paige, is that it's not if, it's when. It's when those dips come. It's when those trauma responses will come in, as we refer to those in the plain language, triggers. We're often triggered, and for us to identify what that means and to provide the support and the care and the love of our partner to navigate through those and to help them do that.
Wow. Something that just came to mind is applying this through the lens of polarity. And this feels like a disrupting belief, but masculine leadership to his feminine should feel provoking. It should feel provoking. And if it doesn't, he's not leading fully from his masculine.
Okay. You got to expand on that, because I think you just hit something. Help our audience understand what you mean by provoking.
So I would say the large majority of women are living in their masculine energy. And so as her masculine partner continues to lead up and step up and lead her, this will likely and should, if he's leading up, this should feel provoking to her in her masculine energy, because the science of polarity says there's to be opposing poles, opposite poles. And so if you have two masculine energies in the arena, there's going to be rub. It's going to provoke. And so it's in those uncomfortable moments, or those activating moments, where she is then invited to pop the hood, take a closer look at, like, okay, what is behind this activation here? And how can he and I come together to co-create the resolution for this energetic?
Absolutely. Yeah. Polarity is, and we've, begun to, we certainly have been living in this, you and I, and navigating our own history, and then bringing it to our clients and bringing it to, to the world, is life altering and provoking and provocative.
Mhm.
And, reeling that back to our conversation here about the supporting of the healing of our partner's trauma, is that can feel to the masculine forward feminine, right, who has some masculine wounding coming forward and taking care of herself, can feel pokey, can feel, that's a technical word, pokey.
That's perfect.
That's right. Yeah. Feel poked and jabbed by the masculine leadership in supporting her healing, challenging her, holding her accountable, challenging her to, as you say, pop the hood and look under what's going on and to truly identify what those trauma responses are, what was going on in the past that is bringing those triggers still to the forefront, and for the masculine to hold space for her, right, and to challenge her and hold her accountable, is out of love. It's out of a strong and powerful leadership form. And for her to surrender to that can be really difficult if she has been in her masculine her whole life.
Totally. Yeah. And I had an asterisk that I meant to say, and you took the words out of my mouth. And not provoking in a predatory way or in an unsafe way, in a loving way. He's leading her lovingly. That's really, really important distinction.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can go on and on and on about that. And we certainly will in future podcasts. But I think we'll bring this conversation to a close here, and to kind of highlight a couple of these things in regards to providing the support of the healing, the trauma of our partner. Is remember that the ideal definition, certainly what we define as a romantic partnership, one that is elevated and aligned and mature, is that we are doing our own healing work. We're doing our own transformative work. Therefore, we can hold the space for our partner in their support of their healing of their trauma. It's not a codependence, it's not a trauma bonding, but it's providing and holding space for your partner. You are an individual. Your partner's an individual. You have two individuals, and they will always remain in their individuality. This is called interdependence, right, rather than codependence. Right, is that Paige is responsible for her healing. I'm responsible for mine. And what Paige provides me is the support and the accountability for that healing to happen. But it's my responsibility to heal, and it's her responsibility to heal. And for those to meld or enmesh is a way in which we want to stay away from. We want to move into, again, more of an interdependent role in our relationships.
Yes, spot on. Nailed it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So I think anything else you want to add there?
No.
Are we good? Okay.
Yeah,
I think we'll tie it up here. And friends, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope we've provided some insight and wisdom and some inspiration in how to navigate trauma within our personal relationships, our romantic relationships. And if you're interested in knowing more about how we help our clients in various ways, you can send us a message. We're all over the socials: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're everywhere. Send us a message. You can find us daring deeply or daring-deeply.com. That's our website as well. I wanted to mention Paige is getting ready to launch a program for women called Surrender: Becoming One with the Feminine Body. And so if you're interested in knowing more, ladies, if you're interested in knowing more about all the things that we've been talking about and how to encapsulate those and to really get back into your body and to understand returning to the little girl and the woman and the feminine essence in which you were designed and crafted to be, she's getting ready to launch that program. It starts August 2nd, and we can certainly provide those details. 10-week program. You want to say something about that real quick? I kind of just bat some things.
10 weeks. It'll be both self-led and guided. So there's 5 modules. We'll talk about the, the 5 pillars of femininity.
There you go.
And we'll get to break down surrender into really, really, really nice granular detail that applies to just real life experiences, and talk about the how. Like, the how is so hard. Like, how do you surrender? Like, how do I surrender if I've been in my masculine for so long? Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah.
Powerful.
So it's going to be great. We start August 2nd, and spots are limited. So if it interests you, I would encourage you to get in now.
Yeah, we've got some amazing ladies who have signed up and they're ready to go. They're so excited. I'm so excited to see this program come to life. And I think I know it's going to be transformative for so many women. And for gentlemen, we have an opportunity for you as well. So if you're listening to this, Paige and I will be leading our men's retreat coming up September 28th through October 1st, 3 days here in the Nashville area. So if you're interested in knowing more about leaning deeper into your masculine gentleman and truly understanding what leadership is and touching on some of the things that we talked about today, really understanding your purpose towards your career, having the relationship of your dreams, gentlemen. I know every guy out there is like, yeah, can I have some of that? We'll certainly be diving into that from a deeply masculine perspective at our men's retreat, which is September 28th through October 1st. And you can message us and to find out more information about that. We have the spots are limited there. We've already had some men committed to that and excited for that to happen too. So we'll end there. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for dropping in on the Daring Deeply podcast. I'm David Lee.
I'm Paige Stewart. We'll see you next time.
Daring Deeply. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Love you, babe. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.